When it comes to quantifying emotions, we use that phrase a lot. In fact, most of the phrases we use that work came from our customers. So one of our customers said, I love this because you're quantifying emotion. We wrote that down. We were like, sounds good. So then we were like, what exactly do we mean by that? What did they mean? But here's what it really means. We are scoring, predicting the intensity of an emotion for 55 different emotions: needs, values, personality traits, facets, and the core four emotions. And we're predicting them. Used to be sort of percentile based. If you were at 100, you were likely exhibiting this emotion greater than 100, 99% of the population. When we made our shift from IBM's model to our own proprietary model, what we really started to look at is, let's be a little bit more human about this. Let's call this very low, low, medium, high, very high. So sort of a 5-point scale. And we basically assigned a range of scoring to each of those quintiles, or each of those sort of 20% segments. So anything between 0 and 20 is sort of very low. Anything sort of 20 to 40 is low, and so forth. And what that allowed us to do was also bring a little bit more realism. Instead of saying, I know that you are angrier than 75% of the population, which is kind of a ridiculous statement, we could say the emotions of your experience in this context, in this point in time, they're high. Now that feels more human, but there's a numeric value to that. The numeric value is 3, because we go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we start looking at where are all the other 3s of people who are angry. Might not be a whole lot. You might be an outlier. But even if you're not, we're looking for what is by putting a number, a numeric value to that level of emotional intensity. Well, now it's a lot easier to analyze that, right? Because it's easy to quantify and analyze and do all the things we do analytically with numeric values. So we are literally taking the experiences people are sharing, the words that those stories share. That's why we love the written text from an analytical standpoint. There's a lot more, you can work with it. There's a lot more both precision and room. There's breadth and depth. So we have a lot to work with. When we put those through our system and produce those scores, we're showing people kind of the emotional map of that group of employees or consumers. And you can see it sort of in a distribution curve. Hey, of the 300 people who submitted stories on this project, 80% of them are high to very high on achievement. Well, that's interesting, but I'm also interested if it's an achievement-oriented culture. What about the 20% who aren't? What is their experience that is resulting them not feeling that sense of achievement in such a high-performing, hard-charging culture? So when you have those emotions and those scores, the next thing you can do is really do interesting, emotionally based segmentation. So we do that in a few ways where we are literally saying, hey, if we looked at this on the basis of 2 or 4 or 6 clusters, where do we see really significant differences and where do we see really strong commonalities? That has become a really critical analytical output and product of the platform for people to see how their group shakes out emotionally. Because usually, people are always looking at demographics, that's a given. But nowadays people look at behaviors and they want to make all their decisions based on the behaviors. And we're saying, what are the emotions that are underlying those behaviors? That used to be a very just qualitative discussion. That used to be a very unstructured conversation. Now we're putting structure to that so that also people who think with the other side of their brain can make sense of that conversation. And it's a way of really sort of normalizing a conversation around how people feel.